You might have had some dental work done, or maybe you know someone else who had a filling or a crown placed that was referred to as a temporary by the dentist, and then you or your friend were supposed to go back later on to get a different filling or crown, which you probably assumed naturally was the quote-unquote permanent one, and the dentist or another staff person might have even used that exact same term, permanent, for the other repair. Unfortunately, it is not correct to call any filling or crown permanent. Why? Well, nothing is permanent. Everything wears out, especially things that experience regular cycles of pressure and friction, such as the tires on your car, the shoes on your feet, and the asphalt on the road. Hi, I'm Dr. Ryan. I am a licensed dentist in the US, and I'm here to bring you information on oral health and improve communication between patients and your dentist. Today, I'm busting that myth that any fillings or repairs on your teeth are permanent. I'll tell you why these repairs fail and how long you might expect them to last before they do. So what's happening to these fillings and crowns? Are dentists intentionally putting faulty fillings in your teeth so that you have to keep coming back? Are dentists poorly trained? Is every dentist around the world just bad at fixing teeth? No, no, and no. Just like those items I mentioned earlier, the tires, shoes, asphalt roads, teeth experience a significant amount of wear and tear. In the case of your fillings, the stress comes most often from recurring pressure and from the organisms that live on your teeth. The average adult human can generate a lot of pressure with their jaws. I went to investigate just how much pressure this was so I could share it with you on, oh my God, let me tell you what a black hole on the internet this was. And apologies for the following rant, but most of the journal articles I found investigated only the maximum bite force of the human jaw, and they gave measurements in newtons, which I knew would be hard for you, the average viewer, to relate to. I mean, I don't know what a newton is. And other sources on the internet, including several medical clinics, such as the Cleveland Clinic, again, we're only reporting the maximum bite force, and they gave their measurements in pounds per square inch, which is more understandable and relatable, but no one gave reliable references. Yes, Cleveland Clinic, you gave references, but absolutely none of those references provided that number of 162 pounds per square inch that you gave. The other sites on the internet that also gave pounds per square inch numbers gave ranges of 120 to 160. And I hate to pick on the Cleveland Clinic and these other sites, but just where are y'all getting those numbers? I rant over, but all of these measurements I was finding were maximum bite force measurements. They weren't realistic for me to tell you about your day-to-day chewing. It made no sense because you're not biting as hard as you can whenever you chew your food. You do generate a lot of force over and over and over every time you eat your food, but what is that force? Well, the brilliant people in Japan at the Pro Brain Program and Ministry of Agriculture came to my rescue. Led by lead author Kaoru Koyama, they demonstrated that 10 women in their 20s generated roughly 0.267 megapascals or 39 pounds per square inch of pressure when they bit into a piece of carrot. And they generated 0.189 megapascals or 27 pounds per square inch when biting into a surimi gel, which is a gel made out of fish meat if you didn't know. Bottom line, the force you generate when chewing can vary based on your age, how many teeth you have, and what you are chewing. But you are generating lots of pressure over and over whenever you chew, and this will wear out your fillings. And it's why one of the main reasons that fillings and crowns and veneers fail is mechanical failure. Your teeth are also covered in a film of bacteria, viruses, and fungi, which is what we call the biofilm. It's a mix of what you could consider to be good microorganisms and bad microorganisms. The bad guys cause diseases such as cavities, and they love sugar and they love acid. The more sugar and acid you consume, the more likely that your filling or crown will fail for the reason of recurrent decay. That's right, your tooth is not immune from a cavity just because you have a filling or a crown. Bacteria will get into any little crevice it can and cause cavities. That's why cavities are another common reason for dental restorations to fail. All right, now we've established that fillings are not permanent, and you might be wondering, all right, so how long can I expect them to last? So first of all, I should say there's not a set expiration date on them. There's no predetermined time for a filling to be replaced. I've had patients ask me if their fillings need to be replaced just because it's 10 years old, but that's not really how it works. You see, every time you see your dentist for a checkup, not only are they checking for cavities, but they're also looking at your existing restorations to see how they're holding up. As we've noted, fillings and crowns typically need to be replaced when they physically wear out or if they get a cavity underneath them. Or if you wanted to replace an old filling just because you didn't like how it looked, that would be up to you and you'd have to communicate that to your dentist. So they don't have a set expiration date. How long will a filling last on average? We've had a tough time pinning down the exact numbers for a few reasons. Well, first of all, there's just lots of different materials. There's amalgam fillings, which are the silver colored ones. There's composite resin fillings, which those keep changing their formulations every so many years. There's gold, there's different metals we can use, there's different porcelains, and even for dentures, there's different acrylics. There's also different techniques we can use whenever we're using these variety of materials. So depending on whatever technique is done, could have an impact on how long it lasts. Also, fillings can be different sizes, and it's tough to compare one filling to another when we're doing research because they might be those different sizes, and they might be in different teeth that are experiencing different pressures depending on the individual patient. Also, the research itself can vary from one report to another. And this actually is a problem. There can be a high amount of bias in the research study because you can't do a double-blind study when the patient has to be told what is being done to their teeth, and the dentist obviously knows what's going on, what's being done as the procedure. So you can't do a double-blind study. Also, many of these studies are done by a variety of facilities. Some of them are done by individual dentists in their offices, some are done by universities, and some are massive examinations of national databases. So we get a wide variety of information, which is hard to reconcile. I'll summarize the data I found, and of course I'll be leaving all of the citations below in the description. Amalgam and composite fillings. All of the studies were very consistent with one another on their findings, with the exception of one, which I'll mention in just a second. But in general, amalgams, which are these silver-colored fillings, last on average 12.8 years. Composites, which are typically white-colored fillings, last on average 7.8 years. And insurance here in the US will typically cover a replacement filling after about 5 years if there's a clinical reason to replace it. Now, just this last month, a new study came out in the Journal of Dentistry about composite fillings. This was a fantastic study, a retrospective cohort study, and it pulled data from 99 dental practices around the United States. The researchers were able to pull data regarding over 700,000 composite fillings. That's a massive amount of data points, which makes us very confident in the findings. The fillings in this study showed that the composites lasted 13.3 years on average, which means that our materials, our techniques, or a combination of other variables is steadily improving, which is really cool. On to crowns and bridges. Again, the studies I found for crowns and bridges were pretty much in agreement. Single crowns last between 4 and 16 years, which I know it's a big range, but that's the average they're reporting. They generally fail at a rate of 1 to 3% every year. Bridges last about the same, but the size makes a difference. A study in Germany crunched the numbers on 125,000 patients enrolled in a national insurance company who all received bridges to replace missing teeth. Bridges that replaced just a single missing tooth lasted longer than bridges that replaced multiple missing teeth. Now, insurance in the US generally will pay towards a replacement crown after 5 to 7 years, again, if clinically indicated. Veneers. Studies on veneers were harder to come by, but in general, 1.2% of them fail every year, which means after about 10 years, 90% are still in service. A paper done by Bayer and published in the International Journal of Prosthodontics was cited in several of the other papers I found. Bayer's team evaluated 318 veneers at the Medical University Innsbruck in Austria, and they calculated several survival times for veneers to be 93.5% at the 10-year mark and 82.93% after 20 years. Most common cause for failure of veneers was fracture. In the US, I haven't found it common that insurances will pay for veneers the first time around, though they will often help with the cost of replacing a fractured veneer. All of us in the dental healthcare profession work really hard to pick the right materials and methods to repair your teeth, and we work really hard to make the repairs as solid as possible, but unfortunately, nothing lasts forever, as we just discussed. I encourage you to do your best to maintain your dental work with regular brushing and flossing, and I would encourage you to avoid sugar and sources of acid in between meals. And yeah, we're going to do a video about that in the future. Also, if you have several fillings and or crowns, it would be a great idea to avoid sticky candy. Finally, be sure to see your dentist for regular checkups so that she has every chance to catch a problem as early as possible. Thank you, especially if you watched this entire video. If you want to share a story about your fillings, leave a comment below. Check out this video on how to avoid chipped teeth, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on more dental tips and news. And don't forget, smiles are contagious.